I'm standing next to a 2023 Dodge Charger Hellcat wide body, and today I'm going to be bringing you a review of this 717 horsepower beast. I'm Aiden, and you're watching God Next. Now let's talk about the powertrain first. This is a 6.2 liter supercharged V8, one of the only engines like this left in the United States. It makes 717 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. Of course, it's mated to an 8-speed ZF transmission. It's a great transmission option for this car, and it can take up to a lot of power, which is why you see them in so many cars. Now, this leaves it as one of the last massive, heavy sedans that use an engine this powerful in the United States. I'd say the closest thing to come out of other countries to this car is probably going to be something like the M5 because of how much power it has and how heavy it is. Other cars really don't compare to something like this. Dodge is really the only brand out there anymore who makes these big, heavy sedans with these big V8 engines. Now, on the exterior of the Hellcat, starting up front, you have the SRT with the Hellcat logo in the grille. I love the sharp design of the Charger's headlights, and for the Hellcat, the front end is just in general more aggressive than the other Chargers out there. On the hood, you have the air intake for the supercharger and then two functional heat extractors on either side. Now, some other stuff on the side of the Hellcat over here, you do have these Hellcat rims right here that look really good with the SRT red brakes on the front. I'll go over some brake specifications in a second. I love the look of these rims. Now, a downside of the outside of the Charger is going to actually be that the outside of this is getting pretty dated. This is basically the same design it's been for the last, I don't know, 10 years on the Hellcat. Now, in the back, you will see that you have this LED light bar back here. It looks really cool at night when it's lit up. Hellcat badge at the bottom and these two massive exhaust pipes down here with that 6.2 liter leading to it. They sound great. Here's what the exhaust sounds like. Now, when it comes to the brakes on this car, of course, you're going to need massive brakes to slow down this thing, especially because it's so heavy and makes so much power and has such a high top speed. This has 15.7-inch rotors up front and 13.8-inch rotors in the rear, and I do love the look of the red brake calipers with this green, and it has the SRT logo on it as well. Now let's talk about the wheels back here. You do have these 20-inch wheels up front and in the back, and these tires are absolutely huge to ensure as much traction as possible. These are 305 millimeters wide on the front and the rear, which is huge. But this car does break traction easily, and these tires don't really help that much with that. Some cool little functional features back here. You do have vents back here for better airflow. Now, moving on to the interior of the Dodge Charger Hellcat, let's start with the positives. It's a very comfortable place to be. You have these massive leather seats with plenty of bolstering on the side, nice materials on the steering wheel. Everything you're going to be touching is nice and soft touch. The display is nice and high quality. The gauges look cool. And for the most part, fundamentals of this interior are great. It hits the practical points really well, but I'm going to go into something that maybe some of you are going to disagree with, and it's just that the interior of this car, again, is starting to feel a little dated. Yes, they've had some technology updates over the years, and yes, the interior of these cars has changed a bit, but the general design has stayed the same. I shouldn't be seeing things like blank switches on the steering wheel. I shouldn't be getting the same design I got in like 2015 and 2014. The infotainment system is a little laggy. Now, of course, this car makes a lot of power. It's very fast. This is not going to be your main focus when driving this car, and the infotainment system has some nice little features in it. When it comes to having a car like this, you're going to want to be able to control the performance of the vehicle from inside the car, and you can do that through the Performance Pages app on this car. I have it up right here. You can change certain things like the tuning of the transmission and the steering. You can change the traction control settings. Even launch control is controlled through this little panel right here. It's cool. It even has post-race modes where it'll shut the car off and cool down the engine. You have different drive modes right here. You can see what it'll tell you in your certain drive modes. If you change them, if I change it to sport, it'll change the traction, the suspension, and the steering. We don't have, there are two different types of keys in this car actually. We don't have the red one, we just have the black one, and it limits the power on this car to 500 horsepower, which is about what a Scat Pack makes, a 392, 485 on those cars versus the full 717. You need the red key to access all 717 horsepower. I guess the first thing we should do is probably launch this, so put it in launch mode, foot on the brake. That thing sounds so loud. Such a loud car. Oh my gosh. It's fast. It's just fast. Even for a car of this weight, it's just so fast. And it's terrifying to turn off traction control. It was off. But it's terrifying too because of how much power this just puts down. And with its weight, it just doesn't catch traction that often. But it's fast. I mean, and when it shifts, you get those pops and burbles from that ZF. It's like every car with the ZF 8-speed does that. This thing is just so fun. Yeah, it's dated and it's heavy, but it's such a fun car to drive. I can see why these have so much appeal, because cars like this are just, they're few and far between, and they're just very fun to drive. Now, yes, it's heavy, it drives like a boat, and that's fine. It's not a track car. That's not what Dodge, intended this to be. I think Dodge more intended this to be just a fun car that you can basically do anything with. And I think Dodge's whole thing has always been like putting the most crazy amount of power in cars that you wouldn't expect to have that kind of power. When the Hellcat came out, everybody was just surprised because things like this just don't exist anymore. Especially today in 2023, you don't get supercharged V8s in sedans anymore just because it's not fuel efficient. And this thing is far from fuel efficient. This thing gets an average for us of around 8 miles a gallon, and that's not good. It's so much noise and so much emotion out of this car that you don't get with other vehicles out there. I really don't think, even if you're into more German cars, you have to admit they don't sound like this. I wouldn't recommend buying one new because they do lose their value, right? So buy one used with light mileage and light usage. And get this, if you're looking for a practical sedan like this that has this much power, yes, there's an M5. Used M5s from like 2018, 2019 are about this price, and it is faster. I'm not saying this is the fastest four-door sedan with a big old V8. It's not. But this definitely has personality that many cars out there just don't have anymore. The high-powered American heavy sedan with a V8 in it, this is like the only version of this car you're gonna get, and Dodge is really the only brand anymore that makes those. And that is the 2023 Dodge Charger Hellcat wide body, and it really is America's last supercharged V8 sedan with all this weight and all this power. And if you guys like this video, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more from us, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video.